Okay, folks, I think we're pretty much set here, and I want to welcome you again to this afternoon's webinar. We're going to be talking about fall mailing preparations at the Postal Service, and today's speaker is Jason DeChambeau. Jason is a 24-year employee of the Postal Service. He began as an industrial engineer in Duluth, Minnesota, bless his heart up there in the cold, and has since worked in a variety of mid-level manager positions. His first executive assignment was in 2006, when he was promoted to the senior plant manager at the Columbia, South Carolina P&DC, and in 2012 he became the senior plant manager at the Greensboro, North Carolina P&DC. Since last October, he's been acting as the manager of processing operations at headquarters, and in this role, he's responsible for the operation and strategic planning of the P&DCs, the network, the NDCs, and the mail transport equipment service centers. Jason has a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Engineering from the University of Minnesota Duluth, and is also a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certified manager. So with all that in mind, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Jason. Welcome, Jason. Thank you for doing the webinar today, and please proceed.
All right. Hopefully you can hear me now. I just dialed back in because I could not hear you for a while there. So
yes, welcome back.
Well, thank you. Let me hopefully show my screen here.
Yeah, there you are.
Right now? You can see it?
Yes.
All right. And all you see is the presentation, right?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right, sounds good. So, all right, welcome everybody. Sorry we had a few technical challenges there, but it's the nature of the beast. But I think Leo already introduced me, so I won't bore you with any more of that. So we'll go to the next slide here, hopefully. There we go. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is the peak season readiness. So for the additional space. So the challenge, one of the challenges, and I've been a plant manager for many years, and the biggest challenges with peak season, of course, is probably the space within the facilities, especially with the changing environment with the increase in packages. The need for additional space is critical, and all of our, or a majority of our sites, the large sites, will be leasing facilities for the peak season to prepare for that. I'll speak a little bit later about a new facility that we have in Nashville that will be opening up prior to peak. And also, just to talk briefly, the additional space that we have, depending on the configuration and what products are actually worked in those particular facilities. Some of the peak annexes will be focused on working outgoing mail. Some of them will be working incoming mail. Primarily, most of them will be of the package variety and or dock transfer facility. So they can vary in the way, the size, and the way they are set up. But the real benefit, of course, is to make sure we're keeping the plant that they're supporting fluid and keeping the docks clear, so we do not get into a gridlock situation. So, and we do spend a lot of time with setting up the annexes to make sure that we have staging lanes, to make sure we're working mail first in, first out, and we've got proper staging lanes for various dispatches going to the various plants throughout the country or the local delivery units. The other thing it takes considerable planning is to make sure we've got the additional staffing, and the staffing really is not only for those peak annexes, but we also hire up additional staffing for the main plants as well that the peak annexes support. We'll hire additional clerks, mail handlers, and then from a delivery standpoint, we'll hire up additional carriers as well and clerks to work inside the post offices around the country. The time frame is typically around Thanksgiving to Christmas. and again, it's dependent on the facility and the location and what the projections are for that particular operation in terms of when we hire. But it's typically, majority of it is between Thanksgiving and Christmas. We had met with a customer earlier in the week, and one of the questions was there, how do you maintain the additional staffing? How do you acquire the additional staffing and keep them on board during the peak season, given some of the markets are very challenging to acquire the additional help. And of course, we've got our HR department working closely, with the local teams, the local areas, the districts, to see what the market is like there. And of course, it can vary in pay depending on the market, and also they're looking at different incentives to make sure that we keep that temporary employee employed throughout the entire peak season. The one thing we don't want to do is, since many of the peak season employees that we hire also work different additional jobs in some cases, we certainly don't want to burn them out during the peak season and have them resign on us before we can get through the peak season. Otherwise, we'll have troubles clearing with limited staffing at that point. So the next bullet there, additional capacity, and the capacity is not just within the plants, but also the capacity with surface transportation. I know Brent Rainey's group, we work close with him to make sure that they've got the appropriate transportation in place and that we're loading out the trucks properly. I'll speak a little bit more to that later. And also Mary Taylor's group, with the air transportation, they do a thorough analysis on determining what the space requirements will be for the upcoming peak season, and then they purchase the appropriate space on the planes, whether that be FedEx or UPS or additional charter planes or through the commercial air network. In terms of the plants, looking at additional capacity, we have added significant processing capacity over the last year. Some of the equipment that we have purchased are the ATIS machines. You've probably seen those in many of the delivery units, but we've got some of them in kind of a delivery / processing operation too, to where we're using it both for primary separation, as the plant would do, and for the secondary separation that they would use for sorting to the carry route level. A couple other machines, we had an EPS machine that was installed. The only one we have right now is in Portland. That was installed with the new facility out there. We're also in the process of installing another EPS machine in the new Nashville facility, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. We've got,
hey Jason, could you
yes,
explain for those folks who don't speak postal what some of these terms mean, like EPS and so forth?
I sure can. Yeah, I'll go through. That's an enhanced package processing system, and what that is it's for those of you that know what an APS machine is, which is an advanced package processing system. So it's basically a large APBS or a large app. Sorry, APPS. And the EPS, as John Dunlop would say, or EPS, depending on how you want to pronounce it, is and the one in Portland sorts packages up to a rate of 25,000 packages an hour, and it sorts into approximately 450 bins is the configuration that we have. So it's obviously a very, very large machine and has very high capacity and a high number of separations that we can make, and it provides a lot of benefits for us, not just on the throughput capacity, but the number of holdouts, because we can run both outgoing volume, sorting it to the other plants across the country, as well as the incoming volume at the same time, sorting it to the delivery units. Any other questions on that? And I apologize for throwing all the acronyms out at you.
No, that's good, thanks.
All right. Some of the other machines that we have installed or in the process of installing the USS, which is the Universal Sorter, and that's the USS is designed to sort non-machinable outsides, or NMOs, as you may have heard that acronym as well, and that gives us the capacity to take the larger boxes and somewhat automate it. It still requires some additional manual handling, but it's still a much more efficient operation than the old manual operation where we walk it off large areas. Some other new technology that we have in place, and we've got it in a few sites right now, are the automatic guided vehicles. And what those are, an acronym for that is AGV. And what that is a automatic powered industrial vehicle. So we've got a couple different versions. One that pulls equipment, APCs, wire tainers, anything with rolling stock. It can pull equipment automatically throughout the facility with no operator. And then the other version of it is handles pallets. So it's like it's not necessarily a forklift, but it has a extendable in the front and lifts it up and pulls the pallet throughout the facility. So those we have a full fleet of those in Portland as well, and then a few other sites across the country. It's very limited yet. We are going to be installing into a few other sites prior to peak season. But it's really a really neat technology that we see as a very beneficial application for us moving forward. And another new technology that we have, we had a couple pilot sites last year during peak season, but these are the TSA printers, or trying to think of what the acronym. It's a sweep side. Basically, what it is, it's the wearable technology. It's a wearable DNR printer that the employee can wear next to an APS machine, an APBS machine, and when they're sorting packages and they fall into a sack, and we close out the sack, we can, when they sweep that sack right on the machine, it prints a routing tag, a DNR tag, and to where it assigns it to a flight and weighs it right there on the machine. So we do not have to flow that to a downstream operation for a skein reband operation. So that application is going to be rolled out in a large number of our facilities prior to peak, and then remainder of the facilities that sort packages, outgoing packages after peak. So it's pretty neat, state-of-the-art technology that we have coming out. Any questions on any of those at this point?
Not so far.
Okay. And then we'll touch briefly on the equipment expansion. We've got additional bins that we've had several APBSs out there that we had purchased additional expansion bins to make the machines longer, to provide additional capacity in terms of the number of separations that we make, and I explained the benefits of that earlier. We've also got some other fixed mech technology, sack shakeouts, which helps ergonomically from an efficiency standpoint, to where the sacks roll up onto this belt, and the employees can basically just untie the belt or not the belt, but the sack right there, and then easily dump it onto another conveyor to make ergonomically friendly and efficient operation. And we have installed some feed systems to feed the apps, the APBSs, the package sorting equipment from the dock to reduce some of the transfer time as well. So, and then let's see, we've been for peak, we also acquire a large number of ring scanners, additional ring scanners to support our annexes. We deploy them every year to make sure that we have the scanning ability going forward. Even if it's primarily a manual operation, we want to make sure that we maintain that scanning efficiency and the provide that visibility to all of our customers. So, all right, I know that was a lot of information for one slide. Any questions on that before we go?
I don't see any right now.
Okay. All right. Just a brief overview of the transportation. We will be maximizing available space to reduce the number of trips needed, and that sounds simple enough, but it's really a joint effort between making sure we have the trucks at the right time, and also within the plants is to make sure that we're utilizing the early transportation. In many cases in the plants, and I've seen this firsthand too, we might have 2 or 3 different trucks going to a particular destination, whether that be another plant or another delivery unit within the local SCF area, and the emphasis needs to be, especially during peak season, is to make sure that we fully utilize the early trucks and that we make a full dispatch from the plants, double stack the trucks as necessary to make sure that we are fully utilizing all the cube inside the various trucks, whether that's their own PVS trucks or whether they're HCR drivers. And then also, I know I mentioned Brent Rainey's group, the Surface Transportation Team. They've already established contracts well ahead of the peak to make sure that we've got contracts secured and in place, and we don't run into any issues with a shortage of either trucks and or drivers during the peak season. All right, from a MTE standpoint, just got a quick overview here of looking at the last 2 months, leading up into peak, comparing last year to this year, and the number of orders by week. And as you can see, it's very predictable. Really, not much has changed from last year to this year. And then just kind of giving you a high-level overview of the kind of MTE inventory we're dealing with at a national level. You can see, just in terms of pallets, if you look at this column right here with the current MTE inventory in hand, we've got roughly 1.8 million pallets on hand, almost 4 million EMM trays, 7 million MM trays. You got 4 million sleeves, so it's a large inventory. But even with that, we have made some additional purchases prior to peak, and it's pretty common. The only thing that we've changed a little bit more this year than last year is we did purchase some orange sacks this year. They're not the traditional priority sacks. They're more like the clear sacks that we have, but they're orange and it's a little bit more opaque, where we can't see through them as much. And the idea here is to properly isolate the priority mail and use them more for the priority mail, or the PMOD going forward and having a separate color to help distinguish that. So I think we've ordered roughly about 2 million of those, and they are expected to arrive in the next month or so, and we'll be making those available to the operations here prior to peak. All right. All right, just this is a picture. Sorry, it's kind of small, but of the new Nashville facility. It's the facility it's going to be called the Music City Annex, MCA, another acronym for us. The NAS code is 272MA. It's going to be processing packages, bundles, and flats. So it's still going to be split. You know, they have the current Nashville P&DC, and then this facility here will have the EPS, as I referred to earlier, the Enhanced Package Processing Sorter. They'll have a USS, Universal Sorting System, which is for the NMOs. And they'll have 3 AFSM machines, and then they will have automatic guided vehicles as well, as I spoke to with the AGVs. So we're excited to have this facility opened up, and they're in the process right now of installing the facility's done, but they're installing the EPS machine right now, which again is a very large machine. So we've got the mail direction files in place for October 1st for all flats and parcels. Got the ADC and the SCF numbers listed there for your reference. All right, a couple other briefings here on new equipment and MDF updates for St. Louis. This is a permanent change where they gained additional dock space. So we're canceling the redirection of the DSCF marketing mail letters effective 9/1. Drop it to St. Louis P&DC instead of St. Louis NDC. And a couple temporary ones, Eastern Shore. We're removing their linear integrated parcel sorter. That might, I don't know if there are too many of those left in the Postal Service. Hopefully that's the last one. And then they're installing a ATIS machine instead, which is the automatic delivery unit sorter. And even though it says it's a delivery unit sorter, it can also sort packages for the plants as well, in the primary, outgoing, or destinating. As a result of that, we'll have a redirect for the DSCF periodical flats and the marketing flats to Linthicum from the 30th. Well, actually, it started on July 30th through the 24th of this month. And then Salt Lake City, we're installing a low-cost tray sorter and a tray transport system. So the redirect there would be all the DADC and DSCF letters, periodicals, and marketing mail to the Salt Lake City Annex from 8/5 to 9/27. Any questions on that?
Jason, when you have situations where processing a split like that, you got parcels here, flats there, or letters someplace else, how much additional local transportation do you need to make sure that everything kind of gets out from the collective processing activity to destinations, facilities, or other plants or delivery units?
Yeah, I mean, it can, I guess there's no, it would be site specific to before I could give you a definitive answer on that, and it depends on what they're processing as well. But yeah, there's definitely a coordinated effort, and I think in the case of Nashville, the plan here would be for the, I believe they're starting the transportation here in Nashville, and then at the annex, and then going by the plant to pick up DPS mail, for example, that would have to go out to the delivery unit. So, but to your point, it takes a large degree of coordination, planning, to make sure that we've got the appropriate number of trips and that we build in that the additional time needed to get between the two facilities. So it's not as ideal of a situation as it would be if we had both operations under one roof, but it's still better in this case. We went down from 3 facilities down to 2. It's a much more efficient operation given the equipment set that we put in there. But yeah, there's a definite cost associated with the transportation, but that was all built into the decision analysis report when we did the cost analysis before the building was built. So all those factors are built into the cost of the building.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. All right, just going to touch briefly on the USPS communication, and I believe we have Alicia on as well. Alicia, did you get on or no?
Yes, sir, I'm here. If we're looking at our overall communication, when we're looking at industry alerts and knowing that the impacts to our weather that may impact either processing and/or delivery, the majority of the team that's probably on this call definitely gets those industry alerts, but we wanted to just share this with you if you are not currently getting it, because there is some updates. Jason, do you have the ball and could click to the next slide? So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that the industry was clearly aware of is that we do have sufficient capacity, like Jason had mentioned earlier, about us looking at our footprint and getting additional locations in preparation for peak. Timely dispatches with our directive of trips on time that came straight from the top of our organization. The peak days and weeks identified with a resource plans in place, so each area, and we've identified what those days are, have plans, and what are going to be your contingencies. And then comprehensive contingency planning for weather impacts and that communication. And then absolute partnership with our industry and that continuous communication. So we definitely already standardized all of the peak planning. There's still a lot of things that we have to work out as individual, but nationally they realize that we may not have started as soon last year. So after peak, they have individual meetings at each of the areas to discuss what did we do well, where do we need to improve, what do we need in place, and then when are we going to start. So everybody has like a checklist of what they need, what the plans are, and then that continuous communication to get up to speed and ready to go for peak.
Yeah, and Leo, we actually do, we've got an extensive deck that we put together. It kind of includes everything that we need to ensure that the sites have in place prior to peak. We send it out to the areas. They have a chance to, go through it, put together a deck to demonstrate what they've done, how, and their preparedness. And then we, the headquarters leadership, we have a group that goes out to each of the areas prior to peak. We'll start doing this next month. We go out and really have a peak business review, so to speak, with the area vice presidents and their leadership teams, and to really validate that they have everything in place, whether they have the appropriate staffing in place, the equipment, any concerns that they have, have they done all of the I don't think we touch also on the maintenance preparedness as well, that we have several maintenance management orders that go out there for validating they're ready, the machines are ready for the peak season. Then we do additional PM routes on pretty much all of the equipment set prior to peak to ensure we're ready as well. But yeah, we go out and do the road show to verify that we are in fact ready at each of the areas and to support them during that. Then, of course, during the peak season, we have a daily touch point with each of the areas to go over any concerns that they have, kind of go over a daily briefing on how their night went, any concerns they have, any actions that we have to take going forward to correct any deficiencies or any problems that they had. So that's kind of a overview of from a headquarters standpoint for the peak season preparedness. Any questions from you, Leo, or anybody else on the line?
Well, I had a question. The National Operations Center, the NOC at headquarters, of course, it's open now. But when will the regional ones, the area ones, open up?
They are open, and that's a good point. I should have. That's one thing I forgot to notate on here. Yeah, we have a headquarters NOC, and then we have one in each of the areas. And in fact, they are up and running right now. And each night they get together on telecons, discuss situations. They've got the dashboard that they monitor throughout the night, whether it be from a maintenance standpoint, operational. They've got dashboards that they review that show how many pieces they've processed on a particular machine set, for example, compared to what the plan is. If they're not keeping up with the plan, they will, there's an escalation process where they will make calls to that local site, find out what the mitigation plan is to correct it. If if they don't see any improvements going forward from there, it's escalated up to the various area leadership, and they we do have a team of folks from the headquarters too that jumps on to a touch point NOC call each night as well to kind of oversee and make sure that things are operationally sound, and if we need to get involved with some additional assistance either from an operations or a maintenance standpoint, we will provide that.
And on a previous slide there, you had, I think it was the email to which you could send a request to be on the industry alert list. Could you move back one? Yeah, right there. So if there's anybody on the call who does not get these, we really recommend that you do this. Sometimes you get things involving little post offices, when a toilet stopped working, but other times you get very important messages, such as major diversions or weather situations and whatnot that affect a lot of facilities. So it's important to get this kind of information. And of course, I think informed visibility, if anybody signs on to it or accesses it through their dashboard or their gateway, I guess they could also have a chance to see during the course of the peak season how things are moving as it affects their particular mailings. So let's see if we have any questions here from anybody. I think we are pretty well questioned. If anybody has any further questions later on or has any local questions, I'm sure you can send me a note. I can pass it along to the right folks. Otherwise, the Business Service Network is available to you. As we all know, it's hard to find folks by phone these days. That's not a problem unique to the industry. I don't think Jason could find half the people, find half their phone numbers either if he had to. But it's one of those things where we go through the channels. As I say, if you have a question, have a problem, send something in to me, and I can pass it along to Jason or whoever may be the appropriate party in headquarters, and we'll try to get something resolved for you. If you have any questions, same thing, and we'll be happy to help you out. Right now, I don't see any more questions, Jason. So I want to thank you for calling in today, and thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. Helped folks understand. I'm sure they understand more about what's going on, and they understand more about some acronyms too, which was also helpful. So we look forward to seeing how the holiday season works out, and if we have anything else to ask about, I'll be sure to get hold of you. So with that in mind, I want to thank everyone who called in today. We have another webinar coming up next month about personalization, so I hope all of you call back and join us for that one. So once again, thanks to Jason. Thanks to all of you for calling in. Thanks to Jennifer for helping me make sure all the technical things work. And I guess with nothing else to add, I will just say goodbye and see you in September. Thank you again. Bye.